Everybody, excuse the delay a little bit. We had to get some business taken care of here. The meeting of the Cambria Community Services District from June 13th is hereby called to order. Would you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I'd like to welcome everyone here and note that we have a quorum. All 5 members are present, all 5 directors present. I do not have a president's report, and I would like to see if anyone, ask if anyone on the board wishes to either move or delete agenda items for today. Anybody have an agenda review request? Okay. Move along to acknowledgements, and I believe General Manager McElhenney has some acknowledgements to deliver. No.
Can you hear me? There we go.
I can hear you. Yeah. Thank you, Chief Burke.
Michael is very excited to be here. He loves recognition. Good afternoon, President Gray, members of the board, members of the staff, and members of the public. Stand up a little closer here. Get up, nice and intimate. Yeah. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. This is a tremendous honor and a privilege to stand before you to recognize an individual whose dedication and excellence and service have left an indelible mark on our department and our community. Today I'm here to recognize Captain Michael Castellanos, who I feel is a true embodiment of what it means to be a fire captain and a leader. Michael has been a steadfast member of our fire department for 13 years. I'm lucky and proud to have worked with him not only here at Cambria Fire, where we got hired as reserves together, but also with the healthcare district on the ambulance serving his community as an EMT. During his time at our department, he's consistently demonstrated an absolutely unparalleled level of commitment, exceptional skills, and an inspiring spirit of service. Whether responding to everyday emergencies or providing mentorship and guidance to his fellow firefighters, Michael has always gone above and beyond the call of duty. Excellence is not just about achieving great results. It's about the consistent pursuit of improvement, relentless strive to be better, and the dedication to uphold the highest standards of professionalism and integrity. Michael exemplifies all of these qualities. His leadership on the front line has not only ensured the safety and well-being of countless lives, but has also inspired every member of our team for excellence in their own role, to strive for excellence in their own role. Beyond emergency response and the high-pressure situation, Michael has also been a pillar of support within our department. His dedication to training and development, his ability to lead with courage, strength, knowledge, and wisdom, along with his commitment to promoting a culture of teamwork and respect, have made a profound impact on all of us. He has truly set the standard of excellence that inspires us all to be better firefighters and better people. Michael, as we present you with this Excellence Award, know that it is not just a recognition of your past accomplishments, but a testament to the high regard in which you held your peers, but a testament to the high regards in which you are held by your peers and a reflection of the profound impact you have on our department and our community. Your legacy of excellence is something we are all proud to be a part of. On behalf of everybody at this department, the district, the community, thank you, Michael, for being you. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor. We look forward to many more years of your inspiring presence and your leadership.
I don't think I could compete with that speech, Berkey. Thank you so much for that. It's been an honor working with you alongside you for the last 13 years. It's been amazing. So I appreciate this, and I look forward to the future with you and what you're doing with our department. If I could direct this attention towards my family. Love you guys. Thank you for being there for me. My wife, Madison. Thank you for everything that you do. Sequoia, Luna, my two beautiful daughters. Thank you for giving me a smile every time I come home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I'll reiterate what Michael said. This is going to be hard to follow the chief, but I'd like to bring up Mr. Owen Purcell. So unfortunately, our utilities manager, Jim Green, is stuck in some heavy traffic and wasn't able to be here to present the award. Owen joined us, what, 7 months ago? No, 10 months ago. So Owen came into a struggling department, understaffed, and according to Jim, he has hit the ground running and has brought just an incredible amount of talent and work ethic to the department. And so we are awarding this Excellence Award to Owen for demonstrating excellence and outstanding contributions to our service district. And I believe Mr. Meeks would like to add to that.
Good afternoon, board. We are very pleased to have Owen. He's been nothing but great joy to us. The amount of work and hard and dedication he puts in after hours, before hours, middle of the night. He ensures that the water keeps flowing. He's always down in the hole making repairs. We are incredibly fortunate to have him. I cannot emphasize that enough. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Cody and Jim and the rest of our utility staff and the management here. And I think we're doing a lot of good work right now. There's a lot of things happening in water and waste. We're ready for the challenges ahead. So thank you. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, last but not least, Mr. Aguirre. All right, this is a special one for me. So you can imagine, as everybody knows, our facilities and resources department is a strained department. When David came on, approximately, I think we're at the 7 or 8 month mark, comes into the district office for his final interview, and we have a little discussion, and I laid out the challenges of him. And you can imagine when David comes in, and I said, "Congratulations, David. You're taking over a department that has no money. In fact, you're in a deficit, and here are the problems I need you to fix with no money." And David said, "Okay." And David has hit the ground running. I've given David impossible tasks. David's the type of individual that if I give him some pliers, duct tape, and a Band-Aid, he can fix a tractor. And that's what David is. David is someone who doesn't take no for an answer, doesn't let anything get in his way in terms of obstacles. He is about the most persistent and perseverant individual I know. He has a job that often goes thankless in certain aspects. I can't get David to go home on our days off. I get phone calls and pictures of him on the ranch, and I'm asking him, "What are you doing at work?" I had to come in. "David, take tomorrow off." "Oh, I can't." "David, take next week off." "I can't." "David, I'm going to write you up if you don't take a day off." I mean, there's nothing I can do with this gentleman to get him to take a break. And so we are fortunate to have him, and I have given him this above and beyond award, because that's what David is. He goes above and beyond every single day. So in recognition of that, I I want to thank you for your outstanding service to the Cambria Community Service.
I didn't even know what to say. This one caught me off guard today. Thought I was in trouble. Board, thank you. And, you know, everybody that stands behind you guys, such as myself, the fire department, the water and waste. Everything that I do, it comes down to, you know, the community. I know we have a good wall in front of us as we partake every year. My biggest thing is what's next every day. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't do it without the support of everybody that stands behind the CSD. That's one thing I'm very proud of, and especially I got to hand it to is my crew. They bought into the program of me being new, turn around and them even being new, and you know, pushing forward. And I know every day is a different obstacle, but soundly, we got a lot of good things coming, especially in our department. We got a lot of moves that we're doing and a lot of good things, but yeah, was not expecting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who, the people being recognized certainly, but all the people who came and support them and cheer them on, and Mr. McElhenney and Fire Chief Bricky. Thank you for conducting the ceremonies. We'll move along to board member communications. And if this is the time for individual board members, individual directors to make short announcements or ask questions for clarification, make brief comments. And I have a light on from Director Thomas to start.
Well, thank you, President Gray and Haley. I don't know if you had the opportunity to pull that up, but I just wanted to make a pitch this Saturday at the Cambria Dog Park. I'm coordinating on behalf of FFRP a Rescue the Trees. A few years ago, we had planted a bunch of trees around the perimeter of the dog park, and those of you who have been there know that they are just inundated with invasives. So our plan is to take the fencing off around it, because we put little fences around them because otherwise the deers will eat them. So it's one or the other. So we'll be taking the fencing off and give a go at removing all the weeds, give them a bit of mulch, and hopefully give them another year of growth. So it'll be 9 a.m. For those of you who want to come out and have a good time, get a good workout, and make an impact on the community. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's up there now. Okay.
So,
You see it? Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to say I've heard there's some concern I've heard about potential loss of audio and visual quality. Where standing committee meetings are testing new AV system. I've just have a feeling that'll come for discussion before anything ever changes on that. I just wanted to, because I'd heard some comment on that, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other board member comments? Okay, we'll move on to public comment. This is the time for members of the public, either here or online, to address the board on items that are under the board's jurisdiction but not on the agenda today. First of all, is there anyone in the room here in the hall who wants to comment? And Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
Yes, Tina Dickinson.
Yeah, Ms. Dickinson?
Thank you, Chair Gray. Tina Dickinson. A couple of items. I did watch the Finance Committee May 5th, May 28th meeting. One thing was the audio was terrible. It was very difficult to hear people speak. I kept turning up the volume. That really didn't help that much. The other item at that meeting was the $253,000 water fund money in the enterprise fund that was transferred to admin. And David Pearson brought that up. And I would like to know if that has been followed up, because that's pretty interesting that an enterprise fund, because it had a surplus, apparently a decision was made to transfer that to admin. I would say that is very questionable. Thirdly, the R&I committee cancellation of that meeting, May 10th. And I can only suspect that had something to do with I think it was 4B, the Creeklands item that was on there. We need to be more transparent, CCSD. We're still not there. You have a long way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment?
No.
Thank you. Any written comment to be noted?
Yes.
There was one comment that was submitted, I believe.
From Linda Prentice.
Linda
and
Prentice,
I provided it to you guys.
Yeah, and it was distributed to us, and it's also on the web under public comment, so which you've all read, yeah. And I think to remind people, if they haven't been following the meetings closely, we're no longer reading these written comments submitted to us during the meeting. We'll simply make note of them, that they're in the record and online. Dr. Dean.
I just wanted to clarify that the reason the R&I committee meeting was canceled was due to a lack of quorum. We have one vacancy and we had 2 members on vacation, so I did not have a quorum to hold the meeting.
Thank you for that. I also want to note with the question about the administrative cost allocation that was raised. Next week, we take up the preliminary budget, and there'll be a chance to examine, if anyone wants to discuss that issue and have it explained, it'll be on next week's agenda. No further public comment. I'll move on to the consent agenda, which the rules of the consent agenda that all the items here, of which is only one, are normally passed under one motion and as a group. Now, obviously, we just have one item here, and going through the same procedure though. Board members can ask brief questions, get for matters of clarification on the item, and then we pass it on a simple motion. There being one item, we can just simply informally treat it as a regular item. But does anybody have any questions about the agreement with the consultant services? Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. It is the same company that we've been using in the past. I just thought that it might be prudent to somewhere in the amendment to add that we will have a different individual who will be doing our audit than we have had in the past.
Yeah, that's a good, that was a question also I had. Mr. McElhenney or Ms. Fritz?
Thank you. Thank you, President Gray and Vice President Scott. We definitely, for the future, can address it in the staff report, and I'll speak with Mr. Carmel as if it belongs in the actual amendment to the agreement with the firm, but we will be using a different auditor of the firm for this go-around.
Thank you. I had a question, one more question about this item, and it's in the discussion of the staff report. Just so there's no confusion, that last sentence that says the Fifth Amendment will increase the consideration by $24,615 from $100,315 to $124,930. That could, at first glance, it looks like we're spending that much this year to some, and I want to make basically. I think this clarification, you can confirm this, but this will just raise the total amount we have paid over 5 years.
Correct,
yeah.
President Gray. So,
Right.
Initially starting our agreements in 2020
Right.
For the fiscal year 18-19. Subsequently, we have amended this agreement for the last 4 years. And this latest amendment, which would be the Fifth Amendment to our agreement with the firm, we're adding that amount to the total amount of the entire agreement for 5 years.
Yeah. And one more question about amendments. After this many years, will next year will be a new agreement? How's that work exactly? I don't know if Mr. Carmel might answer that.
It's not legally required, but if there's any reason we need one, we'll certainly bring one forward.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions? I'll entertain a motion. Oh, that's right, public comment. Sorry about that. Is there any public comment on this, on the agenda, on the consent agenda?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, I'll take a motion.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion, but before that, I just want to make this comment, and I believe I've made it before, so I'm just going to do it again. How fortunate we were with the previous auditor that we had, who I guess you could say was less than competent and put us in a really difficult bind, and our situation was more than problematic. And the auditors from Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim came in and took care of the job like so fast. And I don't believe Denise was here at that time, but she can let you know how pleasant it's been to work with them all these years, these 4 years. And like I said, it was our good fortune that they came upon the scene when they did. And so for that reason alone, I will make a motion to approve and extend the agreement for consultant services with Moss, Levy, and Hartzheim for professional auditing services and performance of the district's fiscal year 23-24 audit.
Okay, do I have, before I go on, do I have a second?
Second.
Yes.
Yeah, I think technically, the motion is simply to approve the consent agenda. But
Okay, well,
long version,
I'll make
fine.
a motion to approve the consent agenda. I'll do that
I
too.
believe that's the case, yes.
And I'll
What
second
fun.
that.
Okay, and it's been seconded, well, the motion to approve the consent agenda has been seconded by Vice President Scott, moved by Director Farmer. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Director Farmer,
Yes.
Vice President Scott,
Aye.
Director Thomas.
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. Moving on to regular business, item 6A, discussion and consideration of the 24-25 rate adjustments to water and sewer rates, adoption of resolution 14-2024 establishing said rates. Could Mr. McElhaney or Ms. Fritz take it from here with the presentation?
Absolutely, President Gray. Thank you. Agenda item 6A, as mentioned, discussion and consideration of 2024-2025 rate adjustments to water and sewer rates and adoption of resolution 14-2024 establishing said rates. These proposed, as far as the fiscal impact, these proposed water and sewer rates are necessary to provide adequate revenue to fund the annual costs of water and sewer operations within our district. These were approved in May 19th, 2022 by resolution 32-2022, and again on June 15th, 2023 by resolution 37-2023. As outlined in the staff report in March 17th of 2022, existing CCSD water and sewer rates are inadequate to fund the normal operating costs of water and sewer utility systems. These increases, as we know, are necessary because our CCSD water and sewer utilities primarily rely on these revenues from service charges to fund service costs. Additionally, as we know, we have failing infrastructure around the district. Our prime example is the transmission line that is extending all the way down Highway 1 and into the state parks area that is in need of repair. We've had a temporary repair on that for the better part of a year and a half. That is going to be a very expensive project. So these rates are to help fund some of these costs and infrastructure costs and existing debt services like our certificate of participation, our SST project, and all of these rates were passed in order to fund those projects. So it is our request that the Board of Directors discuss and consider the adoption of Resolution 14-2024 establishing said rates effective July 1st, 2024.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody on board have questions of the staff at this point? If there are no questions, I'll open the topic to public comment. First of all, is there any comment from anybody in the room wish to comment on this item? Ms. Dodson, anybody online?
Yes, Tina Dickinson.
Ms. Dickinson?
Thank you. Yes, our rates have been increased over time to pay for the costs for water and sewer, and of course, not on this one, but the WRF. Yet, at every turn, it seems, even though those rates were approved and paid and continue to be paid by the ratepayers, the CSD takes out loans. And so on the money that was coming in, the revenue to pay for these very things that we've been told will be taken care of, what happens with the water meters, with the CIPs? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And yet every rate increase, the same language is that we need these rate increases to be absorbed by the wastewater department for these items. So I don't understand that they keep taking out loans for monies that we were promised were going to be used for these items. This district is heavily in debt, and yet there's money sitting there that could have helped to pay for, certainly for the water meters. There was no need for that loan. And some of the CIPs could have been paid already with monies that are sitting there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dickinson. Anyone else online?
No.
Thank you. Any written comment for the record?
No.
Okay. I'll bring this back to the board for discussion and a possible motion, hopefully. Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. And those who know me know that I like to go into the details. And as always, I ran all the numbers out and was everything comes out to the penny, but there are a few on the first page that are a few pennies off. So I scratched my head. I asked, what's the reasoning for that? And a simple answer, on the commercial rates, for those of you who have done the math, the 1 inch, inch and a half, and 2 inches and larger, those are factored based on the capacity ratings from the Bartle Wells explained from the Water Institute. And so the 1 inch is simply 2.5 times the residential monthly rate, the inch and a half 5 times, and the 2 inch and larger 10 times the monthly residential rate. So that's how those numbers are established. So if you find they're a few pennies off, it's because they're based on the capacity ratios of those. So having done that, yeah, I find they're all right on target.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I have just a couple comments to make. One is to note that the WRF, just so people understand, it's not in this. It's not part of this package. The WRF rates actually have not been changed for now several years, because under this rate increase schedule that was adopted in 2022, they were frozen. Next year, we have the option of raising rates by a consumer price index figure, which could apply to the WRF. The WRF rates have been static, which is one of the achievements we had. They were high enough to be to stay put and still be in the black. On the subject of why rates go up, I mean, it's a very irritating thing when the rates go up every year, it seems. But a couple of things, when I talk to people about it, there are a couple of misconceptions about why they go up and why they're going up. Say when we have plenty of water, like we do this year and last year, I've heard that, and a lot of, I think there's a misconception that's it's easy to have, because if you come from places where water costs of buying water from a water purveyor like the municipal water district, metropolitan water district, something like that, are passed on to the customers. Here, almost everything in this in these budgets and covered by these rates is infrastructure. We don't buy water. We pump it, and there's a cost of pumping it out of the ground, but we basically, almost all the costs we have are operations, maintenance, capital costs that don't really relate to how much water we're actually consuming. And when we can, also, obviously, we consume less water than we did 10 years ago, and that's a good thing. But of course, we also have to recoup the costs of all this infrastructure and the updating of the infrastructure and the repair of the infrastructure from less water use. So, and of course, the static number of customers. So with inflation, what it is, unfortunately, it doesn't give me any joy to say this, but increases are inevitable in the way the system's set up, the way the pricing set, the way the economics of our system are set up. So we obviously don't like doing this. It's necessary. And on the subject of borrowing, we borrow when it's more advantageous. It's more advantageous to have the money coming in as a loan and having interest paid out than it is to use the money from reserves that actually earns more money and interest by staying there. And that's one of the reasons we choose loans sometimes and reserves some other times. But it's always a financial decision, and we always do the one we figure is best for the public and best for the ratepayers, obviously. So without further ado, I guess I'll entertain a motion, unless there's any more discussion. Director Dean.
I move we adopt Resolution 14-2024 for the Cambria Community Services District adopting water and sewer rates water and sewer rate adjustments for fiscal year 2024-2025. Is that worded okay?
I believe it is, yes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah. It's been moved and seconded, moved by Director Dean, seconded by Director Thomas, that we adopt the 2024 or approve the 2024-2025 rate adjustments to the water and sewer rates and adopt Resolution 14-2024 establishing said rates. Could I have a roll call?
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
President Gray?
Aye. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to 6B, which is actually a little bit of a two-part item. Discussion and consideration to direct staff to advertise for an open position on the Resources and Infrastructure Committee and direct staff and district council to review the standing committee bylaws. And I'll turn this over to General Manager McElhenney to give some, elaborate on that a little bit.
Thank you, President.
Yeah.
Great. Agenda item 6B, as mentioned, discussion and consideration to direct staff to advertise for an open position on the Resources and Infrastructure Committee and direct staff and district council to review the standing committee bylaws. On May 9th, the board of directors appointed Mrs. Julie Amade to the vacant position in the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. She was on the Resources and Infrastructure Committee, left the Resources and Infrastructure Committee, which provided a vacancy. So at this time, we're asking the board to approve advertising that position, filling that position. And the second part of that is that in this process, we discovered perhaps some vagueness in our bylaws in which there's a potential that it could be interpreted that you could hold two positions simultaneously on the R&I committee, for instance, and the pros committee. And so what we're looking to do is have the board direct staff and council to revise those bylaws to make sure it's clear that the positions on our standing committees that you serve on one committee at a time.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board members? I believe Director Thomas has his light on.
Oh, from the last.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions from the directors? Any public comment? Have anyone in the hall here or online? In the hall? No. Ms. Dodson online?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So do we already have people who are kind of in the waiting room for appointment to a committee?
Thank you, Vice President Scott. We do, since some of our changes that you were a part of last year, we do hold everybody's application on file for any committee that they put in for, and that application can be used towards other committees. And so we do have a list of not only potential applicants for the R&I committee, but we also have other applications that are on file as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Director Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. I just want to thank the people, the members of our community, since the inception of standing committees and PRO's becoming a committee. For the people that step up in our community and volunteer their time to serve the community and to serve the board, provide information and be supportive and encouraging of what we're doing. So whoever it is that steps up for this position, I want to thank them ahead of time. But it's just all the folks that are serving right now, and we all really appreciate what they're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, well put. Any more comments from the board or questions, discussion? Well, I'll entertain a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sure. So the standing committee bylaws that are in here are already corrected? Or would
No, they're not. They're not.
we need to point out the spot that needs to be corrected?
Well, yeah, I guess it's a question of where to slot it in the actual, among the sections here. I would, if I had a suggestion to make, I'd put it under number 2, committee members, and maybe between 2.2 and 2.3. In other words, the rule that no person can serve on more than one standing committee at a time, yeah, and that would probably be, looks like the appropriate place from my perspective, if we want to be that specific at this point. I
Do you
mean,
have a wording for that?
well,
I mean, if we're going to vote on the standing committee bylaws, the correction, the addition in there, don't we need to?
I think we were going to direct.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be to direct
Direct
staff, yeah, and council to examine the bylaws and come back with a recommendation.
Okay.
If you can take that as guidance, they can take that as guidance. It seems to be an appropriate place for it, but we don't need the wording and the exact thing now. Exact-
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. We did discuss it in agenda review, and we do have it agendized for, I believe,
August?
Okay.
to bring it back
Yeah.
for approval and suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Thomas.
While we're making minor revisions, I'm curious. Over the last few months, we've heard a couple cases where members of standing committees have either come to the board or on social media made false and misleading statements, which were, patently untrue, about district business. And oddly enough, as in the case of presidential politics, there's nothing in the standing committees that says we must be truthful. You could interpret it as such. There is, fortunately, a statement in the recently developed policy by the policy committee, which is, the operating principles, which are a great add, that all communications from board members, standing committee members, and staff shall be accurate and to the point. So that's in there. I just thought I would throw it out there. You can find it in the board bylaws, but you can't find it in the standing committee bylaws. The expectation that all committee members be truthful in communications.
That's something maybe for future discussion. It opens up, of course, when you talk about policing people's speech outside of the meetings, which is kind of what we're talking about, opens up a lot of issues about free speech, public discussion, what's true, what's not. Obviously there's egregious examples of it. Sometimes it's a little more of a shaded area. Good for future discussion, perhaps. Anybody else have any comments on that? Yeah, thank you. So we'll go back to entertaining a motion. And this is just to direct, first of all, to advertise this position, but also just direct staff and council to come back with a specific fix for that aspect of, the one aspect we identified in the bylaws, which needs to be corrected. So motion, please.
Yes, I'll move.
Vice President Scott.
Yes. I move that we direct staff to advertise for an open position on the Resources and Infrastructure Committee, and also direct staff and district council to review the standing committee bylaws.
I'll second it.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded I'll get this wording here, be specific. Is moved and seconded that we direct staff, or CCSD direct staff, to advertise for an open position on the Resources and Infrastructure Committee and direct staff and district council to review the standing committee bylaws. Could I have a roll call, please?
Excuse me. I'm sorry, President Gray. Director Thomas just made a comment about members of a committee not being truthful in remarks they were making on social media. Is that kind of what I heard you say?
On the, in one case in social media, on the other case in statements, here at a board meeting.
Wow. All right. And I thought that only happened at the Supreme Court. I didn't know it'd come down to our level. So thank you.
It is good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we had the motion and the second, right? We're ready for the roll call.
Vice President Scott,
Aye.
Director Dean,
Aye.
Director Thomas,
Aye.
Director Farmer,
Aye.
President Gray.
Aye. Moving on to our final item of regular business, item 6C. This is discussion consideration of adopting a climate change planning and policy recommendations by the staff and the R&I committee, and discussion and consideration of forwarding the recommendations to the policy committee for the creation of a climate change adaptation policy. There are several authors of this, but I think Director Dean is one of them, and I don't know if I'd want to do it. It came out of Resources and Infrastructure. Mr. McElhaney, do you want to start, or do you want, because I think Director Dean would probably want to, help explain this too.
Absolutely. I'll kick it off and then hand it over to Director Dean, if that's okay. Again, thank you. Agenda item 6C, discussion and consideration of adoption of a climate change planning and policy recommendations by the Staff and Resources and Infrastructure Committee, and discuss and consider forwarding these recommendations to the Policy Committee for the creation of a climate change adaptation policy. There was several steps that led us here in terms of timeframes. Just briefly, in 2021, the Policy Committee began to work on a climate change policy for Cambria. The resulting needs assessment for a district climate change crisis policy was then brought before the board in July of 2022. Assigned the task of determining those parameters and needs to the R&I committee. And from there, I'll turn it over to Director Dean.
Okay.
Director Dean.
The R&I committee first created an ad hoc committee to work at this at the end of 2022, and then Director Thomas was part of that ad hoc committee and was elected to the board and could no longer participate. I lost one other R&I committee member to finance and another one that moved out of the state, actually. So it ended up being put on hold until the new R&I committee members were put in place. And the new R&I committee members that took on this task were Julie Amadei and Mark Meeks. They immediately went to work and they found an opportunity for a grant from the Governor's Office of Planning and Resources for Climate Change Adaptation and Resiliency Planning. At that time, Ray D'Enzo was our interim general manager and utilities manager, and he felt that if we applied for a grant for a consultant to help us write an actual climate adaptation and resiliency plan, not unlike what Morro Bay and several other communities, including San Luis Obispo, had, that it would open up the opportunity for us to obtain grants to help us protect against the effects of climate change and to mitigate and lessen the effects of climate change. Mr. D'Enzo went ahead and applied for that grant. We made it through the first round, but we did not make it through the second round. There was a lot of people applying for that grant. In the meantime, both of the committee members, ad hoc committee members, did a lot of research, went to a lot of meetings. They went to climate committee meetings. They talked to Bruce Gibson. They did a lot of research on this. When we found out that we did not qualify for that first grant, the lady in charge of this offered to provide us with some input and some help and some training in writing another grant, which Mr. McElhaney and myself and the 2 ad hoc committee members went ahead and took a lot of workshops on this. And Mr. McElhaney has just recently applied for the second round of grants. The committee made several recommendations of things that could be used towards a climate change policy. There are a few things in this report that do need to be corrected. For one thing, Mr. Meeks, I don't think understood what Mr. McElhaney's position was and called him a director, and he is a general manager. We have a place where I said to mitigate or lessen the effects of climate change, and it should be to anticipate, lessen, and mitigate the effects of climate change. I'm open for any questions on this. The first attachment that is in here was a progress report for the first few months that they worked on this. The second attachment in here is their final report with some suggestions in it. We interviewed all of the department managers to find out what they were doing to help offset the effects of climate change. We listed the municipal code for outdoor lighting and night sky preservation. We thought that would be of benefit for the policy committee to review, since we are not actually an officially adopted night skies community, but there's a lot of information in these 2 documents on how to protect the night skies from light pollution. There's 2 links in here from SLO County on their energy and climate reports and their climate-wise projects that have a lot of other information in there too. One of the things we did talk about that is not in this report, I noticed, is we were talking about finding out if there was a way to have a shuttle bus on the weekends when the tourists are heavily attending events in Cambria. We thought maybe the tourism board would be a place to approach for that, since they're ones increasing our tourism. So anyway, that's just kind of an overview of what we did.
Okay. Any questions from directors for either Mr. McElhaney or Director Dean? Vice President Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say thank you for, number one, recognizing the first draft that we made in 2021 and the work that's been done since then. And I think the policy committee is very anxious to follow through with our assignment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Farmer.
Thank you, President Gray. What I'm about to say is no reflection on our district, on Ms. Amadei or Mr. Meeks or our general manager, or the staff that work here at the district. But we're at a climate crisis on this planet, a climate emergency. And I think it behooves everyone within the sound of my voice to give some thoughtful consideration as to how we, in one fashion or another, as individuals, not just this district, can do what we can in our everyday life to somehow do less, whether it's less driving, buying less, so therefore there's less transportation taking place from wherever around the world to here. Anything that people can think about, sitting around, let's say, the kitchen table or in your living room with your friends, because we are in a serious crisis on Mother Earth. And whatever we do here at the district, I hope it's an effort that takes that in mind, whether it's incorporating solar power or anything else that fits into what I just said. But these are challenging times on this planet. And like I say, hopefully whatever we come up with here with regard to the R&I committee, I wish them all the best, and something that is really advantageous to our district and how we function. But it's just so much greater than that. And I just wanted to point that out. And if you're watching the news and you see what's going on everywhere, it's heartbreaking to see. So just give some thoughts to Mother Earth and what we can do to live more in harmony with her and with one another. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Farmer. Director Thomas.
Thank you, President Gray, and well said, Director Farmer. And to that point, as you read the report in here, there's many mentions of mitigating the effects of climate change. Very important. I would hope to see, as the policy committee works through this, as much attention as reducing the causes and sources of climate change from our operations and actions, as well as mitigating the effects of. And it's inevitable. It's here, so we've got to do what we can to deal with the effects. But as Director Farmer mentioned, we also need to take just as much effort at reducing the causes. And many of the elements in the report are both. So they're both in there. But having that very clear lens, we might separate those out and understand what are the causes and what are the effects, and be sure we're dealing with them with different approaches.
Yeah, thank you. No further questions or short comments. I'll take this, open this to public comment, and then we'll come back to the board. Mr. Dujic, would you come forward?
Thank you. Thank you, President Gray. And thanks to the board for their great comments, and particularly to the R&I committee and Director Dean for putting this together. The Climate Action Plan Committee did a marvelous job, and it's huge progress. A couple of thoughts along the same line as what Director Thomas mentioned is one of the things that we could mention in the next round of work on this is identifying the district's carbon footprint and saying, how do we get to net zero carbon, excuse me. And so again, there's ways of looking at that which could be done down the road. I like the shuttle bus idea on the weekends, particularly if it's an electric shuttle bus, and particularly if it's charged with solar or another renewable resource. Those kinds of things could be incorporated in here, just a little more creative thought. But overall, it's tremendous, and I think it's wonderful to see the very first established Climate Action Plan Committee. The first thing is set goals, item number 1, which is you obviously clearly have to look to see where you can make a difference, and then prioritize those things that make a difference. So thank you very much. Great work.
Thank you. Anyone else in attendance want to speak? Mr. Heinrichs.
Yes, board, I appreciate this opportunity that we've initiated way back in 21 to have the Finance Committee get their input, which was important to give us some guidelines of what they were feeling appropriately to address. And now we're having this opportunity of moving it forward. So we, as the policy committee, look forward to that opportunity.
Thank you. Any other comment in attendance? Any people in attendance want to comment? Seeing none. Any online? Ms.
No.
Dodson? None?
No.
Can I add a few things?
Yes, actually, I'll bring it back to the board for discussion. So Director Dean, you go ahead.
Okay, as you know, I just came back from France, and they are very, very environmentally conscious, and they are doing a lot to address the effects or the causes of climate change. They're totally anti-plastic. If you go to get takeout, your silverware that you get is wood. Everything is recyclable or compostable. They are trying to eliminate as much vehicle and air traffic as possible throughout France by encouraging the development of more high-speed rail across the country so that there are fewer planes flying over that are just staying within the country. There is a lot of solar being put in, a lot of electric vehicles being purchased, and the electric vehicle charging stations are being run by solar, which I thought was really interesting. I've never seen a solar-powered electric vehicle charging station. They do still have nuclear power. I saw quite a few nuclear power plants, but they are trying to eliminate those. And there are wind turbines all over France. They're really into the wind energy. But I just wanted to say that, you know, we're not the only people who are being affected, of course, by climate change. And I was pleased to see that France was making such an effort of dealing with it. And I'm hoping that we can do some of those same actions as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Because I had a couple of comments on the, okay, I appreciate the committee's work and patience dealing with this issue through the vicissitudes of the membership changing, and just the passage of time, and not getting a grant and the disappointment of that, which is just persevering, which is good. I did have something struck me that is confusing about our discussion in light of the recommendations on page 36 and 37. And I want to get some clarity, maybe from other members of the board, as to how we proceed next. The recommendation from the committee, which I think is a sound one, is to establish a climate action plan committee. They don't specify who's on it or under which, if it's with another committee or under another committee, or if it's an ad hoc committee of the board. But I think with all these recommendations and all this knowledge that's been accumulated or brought together, it is the time to work on an action plan, more specific and more focused than what we've been able to do so far. I think I wholly support that idea, but I don't know how this dovetails with the policy committee and a policy on climate change, because I think somehow the plan has to come before the policy. The policy might be ultimately to follow the plan, but we have to have some sense of what we're going to do and what we're, as a district, to meet these goals of both, adapting to climate change and doing what we can to mitigate it. We have to kind of figure out what we are capable of doing, what we can do in terms of actions or approaches, or into our decision making, identification of risks, and so forth. And then that would be incorporated into a policy going forward. But we have to have some sense of what we actually plan to do. So that's why the committee, the Climate Action Plan Committee, to me seems to be a first step. And then the policy committee picks up the policy aspects of that. But I think we need a plan first, and we need a committee first. And I can maybe ask for some suggestions. If it's an ad hoc committee of the board, I could see that being a very viable way to go. But I'm confused about the recommendation that this go to policy committee now and what the policy committee would actually be doing. I'm open to responses on that. Dr. Dean?
I know the policy committee is very anxious.
I know, but
to
would
get
they,
there.
yeah.
And we have spent a lot of time doing this research, but that is the direction that Mr. Dienzo was trying to take us with, is doing an official climate action adaptation and resiliency plan, because that does help us get grants towards mitigating or addressing some of the causes as a result of climate change. So I'm not quite sure where to go with this, but what my thought is, I believe that you had a committee that involved a lot of members of the community looking at ways to take care of the Vets Hall and some of those other things. What about a committee like that with members of the community and led by maybe an ad hoc committee of the policy committee? in order to gather information together to help create a climate adaptation and resiliency plan of which to write the policy from.
Vice President Scott first.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I see establishing a climate action plan committee as part of the policy. I think the policy is a way to look at things in general terms, and actually the plan is much more specific. So if you write a policy that gives parameters, then one of those parameters is to establish a climate action plan committee. And we can look at the people who should be on that committee. And we can look at the individuals that would make sense to be on that committee. I just don't think, I think the plan itself is going to take a lot of time to put together. And I think if you get a policy that begins the process, then if we need to change the policy later on, we can. But I don't think that it's necessary to have a climate action plan committee before putting together a policy, my opinion.
I would tend to agree with her.
Yeah, Director Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, President Gray. And I really was thinking the same thing. I mean, because it's not chicken or the egg. One does not begat the other, but the policy will be higher level, set some parameters that would guide staff. I had put some thoughts together a few years ago that I'm sure Director Dean still recalls, and one of those elements was, I would say, in the policy, we should have something that every decision made by every member of staff that has the potential for causing emissions, the emissions footprint from that decision be not only considered, but documented and brought to staff or the board as the case is. That would be an example of something that might be in the policy, and kind of setting the framework and the plan. I've heard Mark Makes and Julie Amadei and others talk about the size of some of the climate action plans, and going down the road, I mean, hundreds of pages can be created that are certainly will be impressive in getting grants, but what are we going to do can be nailed down in a few pages, and hopefully that more tactile sense is what we could do much more quickly. And and you've got a task force ready and charged to go with this, and quite capable from what I can see.
Dr. Dean.
You know, I really do think we need to have a climate policy because it's going to take us a long time to write a climate adaptation and resiliency plan. Morro Bay did a lot of research on theirs, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it's something like 683 pages. The one that's San Luis Obispo is huge. We do need a climate adaptation and resiliency plan, but in the meantime, we need to deal with the issues on how to deal with things now while we're doing that plan. So and I know that the policy committee has waited a long time for this. And I know that they really want to get something going on the climate policy. And I think we can do a policy not unlike with some of the suggestions that Director Thomas said on, how we make our decisions based on what's going on, as Director Farmer likes to say, Mother Earth, because it is Mother Earth, and we need to be careful and protective of Mother Earth and the environment. And I think that a policy will guide us in the decisions that we're making while we're working on a climate adaptation and resiliency plan.
Okay. Dr. Thomas.
Ready for a motion?
Well, I make just a final comment. Yeah, I understand what everybody's saying here. I mean, my instincts are telling me, and maybe it's just also my sense of realism tells me we have to have the idea of a climate action plan. Yes, when they're actually completed, they're very large and they're very detailed, but they're also represent an effort to ground future actions in our own capabilities, our own capacities to act, and in our own range of action. And they deal with these complexities of what we actually can do, given what we need to do in service to the public, what the laws are, and so forth. Sort of the nuts and bolts do have to be attended to. I think if you did make policy without reference to that, to the realities of what we can do, I think we're maybe just going off in all directions with suggestions that just are not practical. So I respectfully demur, or let me say dissent from the idea of taking this right now directly to policy committee. I would like to see an action plan committee set up, and ideally, I think as an ad hoc of the board with community, just as Director Dean was saying about the Vets Hall committee with community participation. We can leave that to not to today's agenda, but I would like to see that done at least parallel with whatever the policy committee is doing, because I think you have to keep the policy committee's deliberations anchored to the actualities that we're in. So my final comment, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, interesting.
Yeah.
Very
That's
interesting
my
point.
discuss.
And one thing we've learned is
Yeah.
that the board president can at any time call for an ad hoc committee. So it's entirely within your purview, whether it's agendized or not. It could happen today.
Well, it could,
in
except.
and also, I just wanted to comment that in addition to or instead of,
Yeah.
of course, but I just wanted to comment that there are no on pages 36 and 37. Nowhere does it say this year, improve water distribution systems and storage tanks this year. No times are established here. It's understood that these will all feed into the prioritization system, the planning, and that we have limited resources. It doesn't appear to me that there's anything within these recommendations that conflict in any way with our strategic plan or CIP list. These are things that will feed in, and we'll do them as fastly as we can, considering our limited resources and capabilities.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, just to pick up on Director Thomas's comment. Yes, I have the power to establish an ad hoc committee. I need usually the smart thing to do when the idea is fresh and hasn't been run past board members. Is asked board members whether they'd like to serve or not, and that you can have those conversations. I may come back at a future meeting with an ad hoc committee to a point, but we'll have to talk to all of you guys. Talk to people first. Yeah, Director Dean.
Do you want a recommendation of a couple of the board members to be on the ad hoc committee now?
Yeah.
Okay, I think Director Farmer with his passion and Director Thomas.
Two of them? Well,
can we try to wrap up the ranch maintenance ad hoc?
I think we have to. Well, let's. I'll talk to Director Farmer and Director Thomas about this and come back at a future meeting soon with a formal appointment. Yeah. So just to talk it over with them. Yes, and because Director Thomas and I are working on a fairly detailed examination of the ranch management duties and how they're being divvied up between us and the FFRP. So we're going to get that done first, maybe, before we get going on this. But that's a very good suggestion. And I think Harry would be a great choice. Director Farmer would be a great choice. Any comment?
Yeah, and I look forward to doing that as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Director Dean. Yeah, I wouldn't say energy. I would say fire. I would I would bring some fire to that topic.
So without any further discussion, I think we can, unless Director Thomas, your light is on. Yeah. Without any further discussion, I would entertain a motion on what is before the board today, which is the adaptation to climate change planning and policy recommendations by staff and the R&I committee, and forwarding the recommendations to the policy committee for the creation of a climate change adaptation policy. Do I have a motion on that? Dr. Thomas?
Thank you. I do, and I would move that we adopt the climate change planning and policy recommendations herein and forward the recommendations to the policy committee for the creation of a climate change adaptation policy.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so moved and seconded that we adopt climate change planning and policy recommendations by the Staff and Resources and Infrastructure Committee. And we forward the recommendations to the policy committee for the creation of a climate change adaptation policy. Director Farmer, you have a comment?
Yeah, I guess my only comment is the term climate change. And I'm not saying necessarily that I'm not going to vote for this or that it needs to be changed, but what's going on the planet, it's not a change, it's a crisis, and it's an emergency. How we use that terminology in this item, I can't necessarily say, but like I said, that's the feeling that I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have another,
Directors,
because I was going to say the same thing, and that is that, is it possible that the title of the policy could be something along the line that is not necessarily a climate change adaptation policy?
I do believe that the last few policy committee meetings that I have watched, that they are calling it a climate crisis, climate policy.
Yeah.
That would probably be up to the policy committee in some ways to label it, though.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we have that flexibility.
Yeah. So I guess it's been moved and seconded, right?
It has.
And so I'll take a roll call.
Director Thomas?
Aye.
Director Dean?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
Vice President Scott?
Aye.
President Gray?
No, thank you. Moving on to, actually, I think we'll get done before we need a break. Anybody need a break? Okay, we'll take a break. 10 minutes. What? know. It's okay. We have plenty of time here. We're ready to go again. Thank you. Reconvening the meeting at 2:24. We have a series of reports that are in the agenda packet from the standing committees and the liaison reports of people who have been covering and tracking other entities, governmental and otherwise. So I do have cards, speaker cards for public comment on 3 of these, and so I guess we'll take them separately. So for purposes of public comment, the first of these is the Finance Standing Committee report, 7A. Any questions from the board of directors on this? Director Scott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I do have a question on the wording of the second to the last paragraph on page 38, where it says that Ms. Fritz also noted that due to revenue constraints, the preliminary budget as proposed does not include several capital improvement projects that had been approved for the budget by the Resources and Infrastructure Committee. I just think that doesn't really represent the role of the Finance Committee. They don't approve things for the board.
Oh, okay. I think that was part of Ms. Fritz's report on the budget, the preliminary budget itself. We weren't being asked to approve or not, include or not include those items. This is just a report on the actual budget that she had prepared. Ms. Fritz, you want to answer that?
Those decisions to remove those projects were made between the general manager and myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a better word than approved, referred, or included, or something like that. Because this, I think, misrepresents the role of.
Oh, you're talking, yeah, so in other words, you're saying that the R&I committee didn't really have the right to have the power to approve them.
Right.
I think they recommended them for inclusion in the budget, though.
That's great.
Okay, so when the R&I committee reviews the CIP requests and their priorities, we don't know what the budget is.
Right.
Okay, so we're agreeing as to whether it's a priority
Right.
and whether it's a project that needs to move forward. We don't know what the budget is.
Right.
We figure it's up to the finance manager, the general manager, and the finance committee to determine whether it fits in the budget. And if it's not, if it doesn't fit in the budget and it's not something that the general manager or the department manager feels is something that absolutely has to be done right this minute, then it ends up getting set aside until there is funds.
I'm not worried about the actual process that happened. I'm just worried about the word approved.
It's a recommendation, it's not an
Yeah,
approval.
I would suggest substituting, deleting the word approved and substituting project had been recommended
Recommended.
Yeah.
for the budget
Okay,
by the, yeah,
yeah, great.
yeah, okay. Any other comments, questions?
No.
There we have a request for public comment from Christine Heinrichs.
Hello there. In the Finance Committee meeting, the committee used district equipment, test driving it, as you said, President Gray, for future board meetings, replacing AGP video. This is not a good idea. It will reduce public access to board meetings. I strongly oppose ending the district's relationship with AGP. AGP does an excellent job of broadcasting, recording, and archiving board meetings. AGP's posts also provide the meeting agenda and timelines to the meeting, tying meeting times to agenda items. Searching for the board discussion of a particular item is tedious and time-consuming without this feature. Eliminating it is not acceptable. AGP offers reliable, professional audio and video services. This is a significant value to public information and district transparency. The money spent on AGP is well spent for good value. Do not lose this important community benefit. I encourage the board to continue recording and archiving board meetings with AGP. At the same meeting, David Pearson raised a question about the transfer of $253,000 from water to admin. It's a questionable, possibly illegal transfer. Please investigate this transaction and discuss it in public at the next board meeting. The recent board decision to borrow $680,000 for the water meter project rather than pay for the meter project out of the more than $2 million in reserves was also poor judgment. The rationale was to invest the water fund reserves rather than spend the money on district improvements. The slight difference in interest rates between the loan and the investment return is negligible, even as acknowledged by Denise Fritz. I question whether there was any financial advantage at all, adding in the $12,500 loan fees. This is a service district, not an investment fund. The money in the water fund is there to pay for water improvements. Driving the district further into debt, rather than managing income for service improvements, is a dubious path. Please consider the wisdom of these financial decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present want to comment on this report? Ms. Dodson, is there any comment online?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on to actually item 7C. Is there a report from the agenda shows, and maybe my packet didn't have it, a report from policy committee?
No, we canceled the meeting.
Okay, so we go directly to 7C, which is PROS. The PROS committee report. And again, we have any questions, first of all, from the board? Comments? Michael.
Thank you, President
Director
Gray.
Thomas.
Just wanted to point two things out. And first, to Ms. Heinrich's point, the challenge of finding things in the written records. I've found myself mind-boggled many times. So you may note on my PROS committee report times, these are the times at which each of those start. I just keep those notes during the meeting, and I figure it's got to be useful for somebody other than me when they're looking back through it. This could be a practice that could augment if we make that change. I just wanted to throw that out there for consideration. Also, mid-page on page 40, Vice Chair Shannon Sutherland commented that based on what she understands, it's time for the board ad hoc committee to turn over the further responsibility for skate park project to the PROS committee. I would bring that up for I don't know if it's appropriate to bring that for discussion, but that statement's there, and do we chat about it now since it's written down here, or do we need to bring that back for further discussion?
Yeah, Director Dean.
The ad hoc committee is Director Farmer and I, and our assignment was to follow through until the permit was issued and it was ready to go for RFP. And Mr. McElhaney is working on getting a final ad hoc committee meeting set up for us. We have some information about the maintenance fund coming forward and several other things. And at that point, I think it's time to give it to pros.
So what may be useful, right? You watch the Olympics, and when the baton is passed, both runners are physically present within reach of one another. Turnover generally is a good idea to, for the new guy to run a while with the old team. If there are further meetings upcoming, I think it would be really appropriate for the pros committee to identify who will take the lead on that, and it's obvious, to meet with the ad hoc committee for any further discussions so that there's no loss of continuity. Would that be appropriate?
So we have two directors on an ad hoc committee, and adding a third director.
No,
creates a
not a
quorum.
director. Not me.
You talking about Ms. Sutherland?
Well, Shannon Sutherland and Julie Amadei
Amadei.
chat over it, and I think, I think I know who would end up there. And this is just like members of the community, but in this case, member of
Excuse me. Julie Amadei is part of the ad hoc committee meeting.
She already is.
She's going to be part of our ad hoc committee meeting as we turn it over to you.
Okay, well, as the song goes, that's just smooth. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I had one question about that comment too. I think before it gets passed from the ad hoc committee to pros, there has to be, clarity on what it means to have responsibility for the skate park project, because it obviously is the responsibility of district staff to actually maintain it, run it, supervise it, and all that. So the terminology maybe has to be a little more clear as to what pros will be doing over, basically, their role has to be clarified. The ad hoc committee's role was quite clear, sort of advising on, strategy for getting the permit, getting it going in the project, through all the hoops. And we have to kind of, I think, the ad hoc committee in its final, as it winds up, has to sort of define what exactly the job of pros will be, because it'll be somewhat different from that, I would think.
Well, it would clearly be those elements that are within the purview of the standing committee, certainly not the elements that are within the purview of staff.
Right,
and
or an ad hoc committee of the board too is a little different too. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? We have public comment from Christine Heinrichs again on this item. Thank you, Ms. Heinrichs.
Thank you. I noted in the report that the decision was made to eliminate the professional janitors who clean the restrooms and those cleaning chores, adding those to the facilities and resources staff. That's misplaced. Facilities and Resources Manager David Aguirre reported that the staff will not meet the district's July 15th deadline on weed abatement for district-owned lots. Please rehire the professional janitors and allow Facilities and Resources staff to get on with their weed abatement work. Giving him an award is no compensation for adding chores to his department. And by the way, poison oak is growing over the bridge on Main Street near the old grammar school. I don't know who has responsibility for it, but it's on Cambria to make this sidewalk safe for the public. This requires special handling. As I was over there, I talked to a young mother walking her baby. She did not know what poison oak looks like and had no idea what she was brushing past. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heinrichs. Any other public comment online?
No.
Anyone here want to make any further comment? Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Please, yes.
And I don't know if this is something Director Thomas needs to answer or Mr. McElhaney. It says in the F&R report that it doesn't look like they're going to make the 7/15 weed abatement deadline. Is it because they took on the restroom duties, or is it because they had problems with their equipment?
It's an equipment issue. The restrooms have nothing to do with their ability to weed abate the lots whatsoever. They have equipment issues. Obviously, we have a lot of lots, excuse me. We have a significant amount of lots within the district that we need to maintain. There's an extensive amount of regrowth. They've been working on it significantly, but we've had breakdown of equipment, tractors, you name it. So while David says he doesn't feel like he's going to meet the timeline, we will step in and meet that timeline, whether it's...
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too, because it looks, I mean, I think we will make it by July 15th, right?
100%.
Excellent, thank you. Another question, I had a quick question about, and maybe a subject that Ms. Heinrichs brought up. I'm kind of aware of the poison oak, I think there, and I think it's on it's not really a bridge exactly, but it's between the, just west of the old grammar school. It looks down onto looks over a site of a kind of a retaining wall. Isn't that county property?
It is.
Yes. And are we, letting the county know, or can we let the county know? Because I noticed it there too. I noticed it is sticking out into the sidewalk.
There's several areas in the district which is county maintained, and we're starting to engage in discussion with Mr. Fixler and Bruce Gibson's office to try and address some of these things, however slow moving it is.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Vice President Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. So do we need a resolution?
I'm sorry, Vice President.
Do we need a resolution like we did with the road?
I don't. Although it would get their attention, I don't think we need one.
Okay.
But I appreciate it.
Well-placed phone call. Yeah. Director Dean.
Perhaps our liaison to NCAC could bring it up to the county.
Next Wednesday night.
Yeah, good idea. Thank you. Next up is resources and infrastructure. First of all, any questions, comments from the board on the report? We have public comment on this one from Christine Heinrichs.
On this, I'm commenting on the biomass cogenerator. This kind of project was proposed in 2018. It took up a lot of meeting time until it was disclosed that the technology was not yet functioning. All Power Labs, the same company, did not send a representative to this meeting. Cambria may have more wood chips than the community can use, but it does not have enough to fuel a biomass cogenerator unless they plan to log the entire forest. Let's not fall for this a second time. Biomass cogenerators are not carbon neutral. They are greenhouse gas emitters. This is why Cambria needs a climate policy. Please read the article, Burning Trees. As the biomass industry grows, its carbon emissions go uncounted. And I will include the link to that in my written comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dodson, any online comments or?
No.
Thank you. We'll move on to the last item, 7E, which is liaison reports and ad hoc committee reports. Any questions from the board on those? Any public comment on those?
No.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, just want to say it's
Mr. Director Thomas, yes.
Yeah, it's worth noting that we, not in the package, but we do have news from San Simeon provided by Director Scott.
That was a handout, yeah, that I think should be, I think it was handed out in front, yeah.
Right.
I don't know if it's...
More dire news.
San Simeon Community Services District, just about is in its swan song there, I think, but Okay.
Pity the poor swan.
Well, one more item, I guess, is future agenda items. Anybody here have, first of all, I think before we go on, we'll get the roster or the docket from Ms. Dodson about what we already have on the agendas going forward, and then we'll talk about any suggestions people have.
Okay. Discussion and consideration of the Cambria Skate Park maintenance costs and funding.
We're
July.
This is not, we've already done,
We've already done June.
so this is
last month.
July, and it's just July, right?
Just
Yeah,
July. And the June 20th board meeting agenda packet will be posted tomorrow night. Discussion and consideration of the Cambria Skate Park maintenance cost and funding. Discussion and consideration of approval of the zero liquid discharge pilot testing program. Discussion and consideration to fill the vacant seat on the R&I committee. Discussion and consideration of extension of the outstanding people self-help housing lane housing and project intent to serve letter. Receive an update regarding the countywide evacuation plan and Cambria's fire prevention plan. Consideration of adoption of a resolution declaring equipment surplus and authorizing sale by the general manager. Discussion and consideration of accepting the transfer station for the San Simeon Creek stream gauge at Palmer Flats from the San Luis Obispo Flood Control District. Discussion and consideration of the CCSD owned vehicle policy and adoption of a resolution approving the same. And a public hearing to discuss and consider adoption of a resolution ordering abatement of public nuisance for the fire hazard fuel reduction program.
Okay, thank you. Now, any suggestions for future agenda items that aren't covered in that list from board directors? One? Yeah, I have one, which comes out of conversations we've been having with staff and at least one other board member about trying to get our use of time more efficient in meetings or in our scheduling of meetings. And I would propose that I'd say that basically the way to do this, I think, is to have staff come back with a report on the possibility of going back to one meeting a month and having a morning and afternoon meeting with the morning and afternoon session. I've been told actually by two general managers now that this would be welcomed by staff, and for a number of reasons. Primarily, I guess it just have less work to do around meetings, because if there's one meeting a month, and then the new issue comes up if we are doing our own setup, which hasn't happened yet, obviously, we haven't discussed it yet fully, but if we have more responsibilities for setting and taking down equipment here, every time you do a meeting, there's a lot of work involved with that. And I'd like to hear from staff first about what they see as the pros and cons of it, and then we can discuss it at the board level before we go forward with that. This is what the board used to do. I mean, Ms. Dodson, you can tell me, when did the change occur? It was about 8 years ago or so?
No, because I started 8 years ago and we held 2 board meetings a month, and then it was changed to 1 board meeting a month, maybe a couple years into that, maybe 2018.
Yeah, so it's been back and forth.
Yeah.
And so I think what I'd like to do for the agenda, put it on the agenda, is have the staff come back with a report on the agenda when they can, at a suitable time, where we can consider it as a board, whether we want to go forward with it or not. Staff, you'd like that idea?
Yes.
Okay. That's my suggestion. If there are no other suggestions for future agenda items, going once, going twice, meeting is adjourned. Well, thank you for rescuing me in my senior moment there.